Welcome to the Wild Pitch Podcast.
All right, everybody. We're back with another episode of the Wild Pitch Podcast. And, getting into this endeavor, we never really understood where we're going to take us and whatnot. But we're lucky enough today to have Jim Morris from the movie The Rookie. I think if you haven't seen it, for me, I'm pumped up about this because this movie is perhaps my favorite baseball movie. If it's ever on, I am always watching it. And, Jim, I'm a New York City fireman. So, this movie's on TV all the time. And I could be seen in my office watching this. And I always have to make sure that the guys aren't around, because there's never a moment where, the tears aren't coming down my face. I just watched the call-up scene on my phone because I always had an issue with, I didn't know what the manager said. And I wanted to ask you exactly what he said. And it's so funny, on YouTube, the call-up scene has subtitles. And he says, being as you are also going. On TV, it didn't make sense. In the movie, I never understood, but I know what he said, so I won't have to ask you. But it's so impactful. For your story is just unbelievable. And, we'll talk about it a little bit today. But I know personally, I just thank God I wasn't a pitcher, because when I watched this movie and I was, in my late 30s, I would have been outside pitching every day, still thinking I could make it. As a position player, we knew, once you get old as a position player, it's over. But, if you throw 100 miles an hour, you might maybe make it. So I'm just thankful I wasn't a pitcher. It would have wasted a lot of time.
I actually started picking up my driveline balls.
I know, Chris. I think you're starting to. But what
I'm not quite 35 though. I'm in my mid 40s now, so it's probably not the same.
Yeah, but you have definitely the ego to think you can do it.
You're absolutely right about that.
But Jim, I'm amazed at people like yourself, all your success, to take the time to talk to low-level people like us. We really appreciate you taking the time, and welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Number one, first responders, thank you all so much. You guys, if it wasn't for y'all, we'd be in serious trouble. I appreciate what you do, and we pray for you guys every day.
Thank you. And Brian over here, he's also a New York City fireman. So
thank you, Jim. Appreciate that.
I can't even think of I don't want to say this improperly, but I can't think of a more serious place to be a fireman than in New York. The populace is just such that it would be tough. And if anything goes wrong, like we're watching right now, Katie, bar the door, man. So just thank you guys for going out there and putting yourselves in danger every day.
No, it's definitely interesting. And
listen, it has its perks too, Jim. Don't let them fool you. These guys get girls whistling at them all the time.
Well, they tried getting me to sign up, but I run from fire.
But Jim, in fairness to us, he brings in, and Brian Dorsey can share the sentiment that it's the most similar to being in a locker room, right, Brian? It's a good transition.
Kitchen in the locker room. I was just explaining this to guys the other day, that the kitchen is the most familiar place to the baseball locker room that I've ever seen.
Yep. But what did we say when you and I were firemen together in Brooklyn? We said that our kitchen, which is a very tough kitchen on the job, was child's play compared to the baseball locker room.
Absolutely.
We always had more intelligent people. Yeah. I said, I play with guys from Stanford and Harvard, try, doing the wit with them, so. But Jim, I know some people haven't seen the movie, but you recently wrote a book. Is that right, to kind of chronicle it as well?
It kind of rehashes that. The first book, The Rookie, that kind of went along with the movie. Disney bought the rights to that. Of course, Dennis Quaid played me because we look so much alike. But this book, Dreammakers, has taken a long time to write, because there's been a lot of things that have gone on since then. And everybody, for the last 20 years speaking, everybody goes, why did you quit playing? Why did you walk away? What has happened since then? The story was great. The movie was great. Dennis was great. But what's happened since then? And so this book talks about what's happened since then. So we go through a little bit of the story, the movie process, and everything that happened in between. But chronic illness, Parkinson's, 50 surgeries in 20 years, constantly on opiates, still in pain, throw vodka in, end up in rehab. And so you have the whole gamut. And as baseball players, you know this, there is no mercy with a lot of people. And you do the best you can with what you have, and you get up every day and you fight. And that's what we've done with this. I've never missed a speech or anything else. Even with the surgeries, I've had surgery on my shoulder in the morning and spoke in Chicago, flying from Dallas to Chicago during the afternoon and spoke that night. And we just make it work. And then what's going on now is even more crazy, because for 2 years, Sean and I have been going, we need to look at the virtual world and see how that works, because then we wouldn't have to go through airports, and then we wouldn't have to go through TSA and la-di-da-di-da, and then Corona hits.
Right.
And we're thrown into the virtual world. And now we're doing meetings on the computer, and it's something that I would have probably kept talking about. You know, baseball players, if only this, if only that.
Right.
And then something happens, and then, whoop, there it is.
I think everybody's getting a little bit of that, a taste of that. And even with we were going to a random place that we were calling a studio, and I don't think we need to do that anymore. You know, you get the mics that work together. We can, you know, I think we're just going to do it like this, and it's been a pretty cool thing.
I think it's fun because I've done a couple of radio interviews where the hosts have been at their homes, and they're more relaxed and they're more
Right.
open, and the humor comes more because you're in your own setting. And so you can bounce things off quicker. When you're in a professional setting, sometimes those walls come up and you're afraid to say something. At home, it's home.
Right.
So if it comes out, here you go, you got it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting thing. So, I mean, to me, just for the people that don't understand,
You're trying to figure out where to start, right? Because this
no, I mean,
is so fascinating. It's like you can
here's
go
why.
anywhere.
Because listen, I want people to read the book and to watch the movie. If you haven't, there's no need to kind of go crazy into the whole thing. But just as a baseball player, I think we can all relate to have.
You know where I want to start, Jim?
Well, just
Go
a
for it.
decade break.
Well, I want before that.
Go ahead. What do you got?
Because the one thing that stands out the most is how much he loved baseball.
Yes.
Or sports in particular, but you love baseball, right? I mean, growing up as a kid, and obviously, you know, there's your child is depicted in different ways, you know, through the book and the movie. You know, I guess the challenging ways of bouncing around all over the place, but the one thing that never changed, no matter where you went, was how much you love baseball.
Absolutely. And everywhere we went, my dad was in the military. We ended up near a big city. So if we were in California, it was the A's. And if we were in Connecticut, it was Boston. And in Florida,
Hush your mouth on that. We're in New York.
You live in Florida, and at the time, the only people on TV were the Braves. And so you cheered for the Braves, and they may have sucked, but you cheered for them because that was your team. And baseball is something that's been constant through our democracy. It's been through wars, recessions, depressions, ups and downs. And even when the men couldn't play because they were at war, the women took over and they played. So for me, seeing us through so much of our history, the game has meant a lot to me. The other part of that is that my childhood was so bad that I found that if I could get in between those white lines, I could be the kid I was supposed to be, if only for a few hours at a time. And I never competed against anybody else. And I only hit a few people on purpose. But baseball saved me as a kid. If I didn't have baseball, I don't know where I would be. And to me, that taught teamwork, it taught camaraderie, it taught making yourself better so you could be the best you could be. And so when I wasn't on the field, I was at home and I was throwing the ball off the side of the wall or off the roof or over the house, seeing if I could run around and catch it. And it's been with me. My grandmother gave me my first ball and glove when I was 3 years old, and we would play constantly until I could hit the ball, and I hit her. And she didn't think it was funny, but I thought hitting grandma was pretty cool. And baseball, I miss baseball. We're not seeing anything right now, and all we have is arguments. And for me, since 5, I'm 56 now. We've always had baseball. We need to get back to baseball. And When I couldn't play anymore, I coached it. And that's how much I love it. And
Right.
I thought if I can get a group of kids and do the exact opposite of what I did and teach them the other thing, they'll be pretty good. And so we worked from that aspect of just being the best we could be with what we had. We weren't trying to be World Series winners, and we weren't trying to suck. We were trying to look good, play well, and then let the chips fall where they may, because I look at baseball as a kind of chess game. And you're trying to make these moves that are 2 or 3 moves ahead of the other guy, and he's trying to do the same thing, so you can come out with the right person, the right place at the right time. And to me, baseball is the great chess match of sports, and that's why I love it. But for a kid, it saved me.
No, that's unbelievable. So like when you take that break, I mean, you go out, you have an uneventful minor league career, pretty much ended, because of injuries. You go when you're a teacher, as the movie says, and you win your district title, and you have to go to this tryout. I mean, leading up to that point, do you know that? I know the movie depicts it a certain way, but did you have an inkling that, man, my arm is so much better than it was, and I'm throwing close to 98 miles an hour? Or how did that come about?
I just knew I didn't hurt. But
Right.
at the beginning of the season, when we made the bet, these kids couldn't hit me. By the end of the season, I can't get this group of 16, 17, 18-year-old kids out. And I've got to go do this bet. And I'm like, I can't even get high school kids out. This is going to be worse than I thought. I weigh 260. I've had 9 surgeries. The doctor said, you'll never pitch again. These kids are pushing me into this. But my grandfather taught me, if you ever make a promise, you live up to that promise, because your word is who you are. And so I knew I had to go to the tryout. I just thought it would be hysterical and funny. They'd get a great laugh out of it. I would go home and tell the kids I did it. They laughed at me. Here we are. And so I go to this tryout, and I take my kids, who are 8, 4, and 1 at the time, and I drive up at Howard Payne University in Brownwood, Texas, down the left field line. And as I park, I'm looking at all these kids get out of their car, 18 to 24, tall, thin, athletic looking, brand new bodies, brand new gear. And I'm like, man, if only. And they're smiling from ear to ear because they're chasing that dream. You guys know that dream. And so I look down at the gut hanging over the elastic band of my softball pants, which is not the picture painted in the movie. Thank you, Dennis Quaid. And I've been teaching my kids about their great-grandparents their whole lives. And I didn't know I said this out loud, but it came out of my mouth. And as I'm looking at these guys, I'm like, what have I done? And my 8-year-old son looks up and he goes, you made a promise. It's time to get out. And I looked at my 8-year-old son with loving eyes, and I said, you're walking home, dude. And I get my kids out of the car. Doug Gasaway's a scout. He's about 70 at the time. And we walk up, and this kid in front of me signs up. Gasaway looks up at me. He goes, how many kids did you bring to the tryout? And I looked down at my 3, and I said, I brought 3. And he goes, no, 2 tryout. And I said, let me explain something. This is going to be embarrassing and humiliating. You're going to get a great laugh out of it, but I promised to do something. When I pushed these kids, they pushed back. They lived up to their end of the bargain, and now this is what they wanted me to do. It's not going to work. I know it's not, but you'll get a great laugh. And when I get done, he looks up at me, this 70-year-old man. He goes, son, why didn't you just shave your head like every other coach? And I'm like, dude, where were you 3 months ago? He goes, I'm gonna let you throw, but you're gonna throw last. They have to throw from the outfield. They have to hit. They have to throw and run. He goes, do you want to run? I said, I don't run. And I said, I'll help you time them. And he didn't think that was funny, but you're going to go last. So I watched everybody try out.
How long was that? How long was that wait?
4.5 hours.
And you're 34 or
What is-
35?
No, but how about
35.
this? You guys are missing the most challenging part about that 4.5 hours. He's got 3 kids with him, and then
I know
he's got an 8, a 5, and a 1-year-old with him. And you know, we're all fathers
all
here.
know.
Yeah.
Yes, so we all know that challenge, right? I mean, good luck trying to keep them still for that long.
Oh, absolutely. We had a picnic. We played games. I changed diapers because I got a 1-year-old.
Yep.
And we get sunburned because we're in Texas. It's about 9,000 degrees. And so I keep them corralled for this amount of time. He finally calls me out. And fortunately, I had a relative showed up who watched the kids while I went out to the mound. And Gasaway hands me the ball and he goes, how many pitches do you need to warm up? I said, to embarrass myself, none. I just want to throw and go home. And he laughs at me. He goes back behind the backstop. He picks up his radar gun and he goes, Jimmy, anytime you're ready. Now, the young guy catches me, gives me a sign for a fastball. I wind up, I throw it. It's a strike. And I'm old and fat. I'm like, dude, that's a good pitch.
Yeah, that's a win right there.
I look over the catcher's head and he's shaking his radar gun. I'm like, I do not even register on the radar gun.
Oh my God.
That is more embarrassing than I thought. All these young guys, they throw like 20 pitches. When I get up to 60, I think they're making fun of the fat old guy, and that dude is me. And I finally get done. The 19-year-old kid runs up to me and goes, sir, which hurt my feelings quite a bit. He shakes my hand. He goes, man, you threw better than anybody today. I said, son, that's because nobody here could throw. He goes, no, you had him talking back there. I said, I'm sure I did. Thank you. And
Now, Jim, you warmed up before this, or you just grabbed the ball?
They wouldn't even play catch with me, dude. I couldn't even warm up.
This is amazing.
It is insane.
I
How
just
did your
get
arm
there.
stay attached?
You know what? There are a lot of different answers that we'll get in that in a little bit, but
All right.
a lot of it goes with faith. And
Yeah.
when I wanted it for me, it never worked. When I wanted it for everybody but me, that's when God came back and goes, you know what? Now you're ready. And everything just worked. I had a great fastball. I'm left-handed. The ball moved like crazy. They couldn't believe it. I had a slider. Never had a slider in my life, but got a slider and it's perfect. He goes, I remember you from 15 years ago at Ranger Junior College. You were a football star. Everybody wanted to make a picture out of. I said, yes, sir. He said, you were tall and thin. And he giggled. And so I said, oh. He goes, you threw 88 back then. I said, yes, sir. He goes, you just, without warming up, that first pitch was 94. Everything after that went up to 98. And
wow.
I'm stunned. The first thing you're thinking, just like all you guys, if somebody goes, hey, you're throwing 98, there's a happy dance going on up here. The second thing I thought was, you're an educator and you have been throwing 98 miles an hour at high school kids. You're getting sued, man.
Right.
And
You're lucky you didn't hit one of them.
I know. And it was just the most amazing thing, because those kids were hitting me, which explains why we get knocked out of the playoffs by a kid who couldn't throw out of a wet paper bag.
Right. Well, that's always the case. Yep.
Yeah.
And my
The
kids
change
were
of
so
speed.
far out front, we couldn't adjust, and we were out.
Now,
I gotta say, everybody wants to be Mike Trout and Clayton Kershaw these days. I think all of us in here, we want to be Jim Morris. This is the best
100%.
story ever.
yeah.
100%.
But Jim,
It's-
they told you, the kids told you were throwing hard during the season?
They thought I threw well. What the deal was, what it came down to with the bet was, why are you telling us to chase our dreams if you're not willing to do it yourself? And I said, what are
So
you
was it
talking about?
still a dream for you?
No. At 28, I had a surgery in which the doctor cut out 85% of my deltoid on my left arm and said, you will never, ever pitch again, physically impossible. And so I let the dream go. I watched all my old teammates make it to the big leagues. I cheered them on. I watched them constantly. But I never had an inkling of, I think I'm going to throw hard and go back to baseball. That never even occurred to me, because my thought was, first you have to go through the minors, and riding a bus with a bunch of guys sucks. And the first guy that goes back and takes a dookie and the whole bus stinks, you want to kill. And for the next 8 hours, that's what you smell. And it just wasn't a pleasant thought. And I thought, I can coach kids, and I'm not at the back of the bus. I'm driving the bus. So here we go. And I'm in charge. And I just wanted to watch kids chase their dreams. And I chose that specifically because I love the game so much. And I've watched the game my entire life, and I've coached kids separately. And then to get them in a high school setting where they're hungry to learn and hungry to win, and you can teach that from the foundation up, how to take care of the field, how to dress properly, how to act, how to carry yourself. Even when you lose, we're going to hold our heads up high. We're going to wear our hats right. You make $9 or $10 million a year, you wear your hat any way you want to. But in between these white lines, you're going to respect this game that has meant so much for our country. And so as we're talking, these kids are like, but you still want to play? I said, no, I want to stay married. Thank you very much. But the way you teach us the game, we know your heart's still in it. When you teach us how to act and react to every situation that comes up. When you throw batting practice, we can't hit it. And I said, that's because you can't hit, dude. And then my catcher goes, why are you telling us to chase our dreams? And I said, you're 18. You need to shut up. And that turned into a conversation where if we win a district championship, you try out. In the back of my head, I'm going, I'll make a fool of myself if it helps you kids push yourselves into something better. Absolutely. I can go embarrass myself for a little bit and let everybody laugh, but you got to win. And then they won. And I thought, oh no, I am 35. I weigh 260 and I am in trouble. And so I go to the tryout. You're throwing 98, come back. And in the movie, it depicts the fact where it's raining for the second tryout. And our director thought that was made up by our writer, Mike Rich. And so he's telling all these people from Disney as the movie's coming out in this big studio in Burbank, he goes, now this part was made up. And I said, no, John, this part was not made up. It was raining so bad, they had to hand me a brand new baseball every pitch. I was throwing in conditions I never would have let my high school kids on the field at. It was lightning. 98, metal spikes and all, here we go. And my 3 kids are watching, my high school kids are watching, and I signed a contract right there.
Wow.
Now, you weren't wearing jeans, were you?
No, that time I actually had pants that fit, so that was pretty good.
All right.
And it was funny because as baseball scout, you guys know this because you've been around scouts, he looks at my legs and he pokes my thighs and he goes, yeah, you got a little baby fat there. And I'm like, shut up, dude.
I'm amazed that the movie obviously doesn't depict the 260 pounds with Dennis Quaid. That's even more amazing.
Well, they sent me to rehab camp and I thought I was there to pitch, but apparently I was there to train for a marathon because 3 weeks of the best diet I never want to be on again and 30 pounds lighter. And here we go.
Now, interestingly enough, we spoke to a guy that used to train CC Sabathia. And, when he got himself in shape, he wasn't the same pitcher. Do you think that had any correlation to you? Like the more in shape you got, that the arm troubles came back with training and weight training, lifting weights and whatnot?
No, I think I had what I had for a reason for a period of time. And I think it was to show me what is possible and to show people what is possible and what happens when you don't quit and what happens when you live up to your word and what happens when you have faith. And Royce Clayton could have hit a home run that day in my first game. I don't care. I got there.
Yeah.
Fortunately, he struck out and they made a movie, so it's all good.
Well,
Jim,
just getting there is enough for a
how
movie.
accurate was the outside the locker room scene? It's pretty moving in the movie. Was that an accurate depiction of what happened?
It was. My father was there. I gave him the ball. Now on the movie set, Brian Cox is playing my dad. I have not one iota of a clue who Brian Cox is. I've coached and I've taught and I've not watched any movies in like forever because I'm at the field all the time. And so when he gets done with that scene and everybody's crying and, oh, it's a touching moment and gave his dad the ball, they give him a standing ovation on set. And I'm like, who is this guy? And then I go home and he's like in every single movie I see. And I'm like, oh, that's who he is. Okay. And I gave my dad the ball. Jose Canseco was there. Roberto Hernandez was there. Fred McGriff was there. And it was a touching moment. And I would love to say that our relationship was repaired, but it was so damaged. It didn't make it. And then that's okay. Because people go, well, how did you know how to parent if your parents were so bad? And I go, I learned how not to parent.
Mm-hmm.
Is how I learned to parent. My grandparents from 15 to 18, they taught me how to be a good man and a good husband and a good father. And those are the people who were my dream makers. And they're definitely in the book. And we have this opportunity. And I had been beat, I'd been cursed, and called every name in the book. You'll never succeed. You suck. Usually with the F word here and there. And I tell people the bruises go away. It's the words that stay with you. And so my ex-wife and I had this deal. We're not going to have kids because I'll be like my dad. It follows. The DNA is strong. It's going to follow the chain. And then when she oopsed me and we had Hunter and they put him in my arms and all I did was cry and think, who could ever touch a kid? And that thought never occurred to me. And so I've got 3 kids of my own. My wife had 2. I adopted those, and now we've raised 5. And it's been the biggest blessing in my life. So people are like, what is the best job you've ever had? And it's being a dad.
And
Yeah, it's definitely
and that's one of the other challenges you had to face, right? Because here you are now, you get the opportunity to go back into the professional landscape and you get thrusted into AA and you're in the Southern League. I mean, Texas is, it's not the Texas League, but you're in the Southern League and you're not really that close to home and you got to stay away from your family. I mean, us here, we're all in that stage where we can't imagine being away from our families for long periods of time, right? But that was something that you had to also cope with, right? And I'm sure that tormented you daily, no?
I was gone from my kids for 3 months, and the only time I'd ever been away from them was during baseball tournaments over a weekend. And so to be away from my kids for 3 months was devastating. So in the movie, when it depicts, I went to a little league game and watched these kids play because I'm trying to decide, is this even worth it? Do I need to go home? This is ridiculous. I'm 35. I should be retiring from this sport, not getting back into it. I'm in the minors. I got a football coaching job waiting for me and another head baseball job at a great big school. What am I doing here? And God always answered with something that helped. And I get a glove contract. They give me gloves. They send the money home. Bills are paid. Next month, it's a shoe contract. And I get money, send it home. I get shoes and I stay. And the next time I go to the Little League game, and I watched this kid playing in the outfield and enjoying the game like he is Bryce Harper. And it is the most fun I've ever seen in my life. And I went, I can't quit now. What am I teaching my high school kids if I quit? What am I teaching my kids now if I start something and I don't finish it? Even if the answer is no, I need to find out what it is because I don't want to wake up one day and go, what if? And I stick it out. I get called up in September of 1999, my home state, my favorite ballpark, and I get to see my kids for the first time in 3 months. And it is one of the most joyous times of my life because I've got a big league uniform on with my name on the back, and my kids are there hugging me, and people who went to college with me showed up, and people who said they went to high school with me showed up. I have no idea who they were, but even kids I coached against, coaches had driven school buses 9 hours across Texas that we had played against because this is the coach that made a promise. And Johnny Oates, the opposing manager, God rest his soul, let 150 of those people into the game that day that had ties to me. And it was just a great day.
Yeah, I guess we can't imagine, but we can try to imagine. So I'm amazed, Jim, as you speak, at how accurate the movie is because it seems so surreal and not true. And I mean, you got to be.
That's always the challenge with baseball movies, right? They never feel like it's legit, but this is legit. Like
this is legit. It doesn't make sense. But like you said, it's a higher power than just
right.
Working and getting your arm in shape or something. It was definitely meant to be, and it really is. I mean, you hear that that's 100% what happened with that. When you get called up, that scene in a movie, because we're big on call-up stories here.
Yeah, that's our thing, Jim. We always love having the big leaguers tell us about that moment because you almost didn't have that moment, and you know what that's like not to get it. So, but then it happens for you later on. So, share that with us.
Let me tell you, you guys are going to get this more than most will because y'all were baseball players. The last game in AAA, if we win this game, we go to the AAA World Series. We're playing the Charlotte Knights. I play for the Durham Bulls. Bobby Munoz, who is trying to get back to the big leagues, is my best friend in AAA. He lives in Texas. We're going to ride home together. If we lose this game, our truck is packed. And it's 2-1 when I come in. It's 2-1 when he comes out. We're at our lockers packing our bag. when Phil Evers comes up to me and taps me on the shoulder, he goes, "I need to talk to you." And
Yeah,
I
he's a
look
Long
around,
Island guy, Evers.
I
He was
look
from
around
here.
that's off. I love Phil. And I look around the locker room and I look back at Phil. I go, "I don't think so." He goes, "Why?" I said, "Because the last 6 guys you talked to are all crying right now. And I choose not to cry." And he just shook his head and he called me into his office. I go into his office, my head is down, and I'm processing what I've been through in 3 months and how far I've come in 6 from coaching kids and then making a promise and then playing minor league ball, getting to be a kid again, playing the game I love and watching it every single day. And I'm trying to go, this is fine. This is okay with me because I got to be a kid again. And as I walk into his office, our big league GM is there and he goes, "You can smile. You're going to be in Texas tomorrow." And I didn't get it. And I go, "I know that. Bobby and I are on our way there right now." And he starts giggling. Phil starts giggling. He goes, "No, you're going to the big leagues. There's a uniform waiting on you. And our team is in Arlington playing the Rangers." And I know the look on my face had to go,
You had to be floored, right? I mean, just I couldn't imagine what it's like.
I'm
Got to be an out of
stunned.
body experience almost, right?
I'm stunned. And Julio Franco, who was like 900 years old at the time, he gets called up that day too. And he walks up behind me, hugs me, he goes, "Man, I don't know of a more deserving person than you." And I walk back out and I call my kids, I call my high school kids. And the next day we're in Texas, man. I walk into a clubhouse. Well, first, because you guys played, before I can go into the locker room, I have to sign my contract. And so they have this table lined up and I sign my contract. They give me meal money for 10 days, a 10-day road trip. That meal money is more money than I make in 2 months teaching. And immediately I thought, I could get very used to this.
Right. Sure.
So I walk into the locker room where they've heard about this crazy science dude for 3 months. And Wade Boggs, who had just gotten his 3,000th hit, is the first person I see. And he looks at me and he walks up, he hugs me, he goes, "Man, that is the best story I've ever heard." And I'm a fan and I'm coach still, right? I'm not a player. And I'm looking at him like, "You're Wade Boggs. You like chicken."
Right.
And he starts giggling at me. He walks off. Roberto Hernandez, Fred McGriff, Jose Canseco. And now they're my team. And it is the most amazing moment because I get to live out my dream in my home state in my favorite ballpark in front of everybody I know and love watching me get to do something I've wanted since I was 5 years old. It's just awesome.
You know what?
Amazing.
It's awesome. Also, I read some of the book, and I think I'm 5 chapters in, and you forged some relationships with guys, and specifically Roberto Hernandez, right, became a really good friend of yours. And there's like two I guess situations or where you guys share some pretty cool moments, right? One was, I guess, he got you up early in the morning to go visit children who were ill at the hospital, right? And I mean, you don't hear those stories about the big league guys, right? You don't hear about the charity work they do, or just I guess the soft side per se, right? So how meaningful was that to you, that relationship and that experience?
The day that several of us went to this hospital and we went to the cancer unit, specifically pediatric cancer unit. And as we're going into the hospital, he looks at me and he hands me Kleenex and he goes, "You ready to cry?" And I have no clue what we're doing. I'm like, okay. I walk in and bro, 2 seconds in, I'm bawling. And he's bawling, Esteban Jan's bawling, Rick White's bawling, and it is these kids who are so close to death are smiling and they're happy. And we're the ones who don't have that disease and we're the ones crying for them.
All right.
And it is one of the strongest moments I've ever had in my life when you walk in and you just want to grab somebody and hug them and hold them and pray for them and go, "You're going to be okay." And you can't do that because you don't know if they're going to be okay or not. And so you just try to give them autographed baseballs and autographed shirts and
you're just trying to bring a little joy to their life, right?
Just trying to bring joy and a little hope.
Right.
And take pictures with them and do whatever they want. And their parents are crying and we're crying. And, you know, one guy would walk up and hug a kid and sign something for him. And then he'd have to turn around because he started crying. And the next guy goes up and then the same thing happens and he starts crying. And the next guy walks up. And those are stories you don't hear. And the other story was one night we're in New York and we get rained out. And so let's just say big leaguers have a habit of finding the hotel bar. And so we're in the bar till it closes and we're sitting up and we're talking. And by talking, you guys know what I'm saying about talking. For you audience people, we are all over each other. And I get to bed about 3. At 6, he wakes me up and he goes, "Get up, we're going to breakfast." And I'm like, oh my God, I just got to bed. I am so out of it. My cell phone is open on my chest. I have no idea who I talked to. The phone's open and it's dead because the battery's been on so long. I shower up, I go downstairs, and I think we're going to breakfast. And he reaches through the bars of a window and he bangs on the window. And this guy opens his door, pulls back the bars, takes us in, and it is a men's dress shop where you find suits and all these nice clothes. And this man sized me up and a couple others of us, and he fitted us for all these suits and shirts and jackets and shoes and socks and belts. And he goes, "These will be in your room tonight when you get back from the game." And that was their gift to us as rookies, as they took us out. And nobody knows that, you know. And then Fred McGriff takes us all out to dinner and pays the whole bill. And when you're around ball players, they can eat and they can drink.
Right.
And I have no idea what that bill was, but it was more than what I made.
It would have been scary if they tried to play a little credit card roulette, if you would have had to throw your card.
Oh, bro, you have no idea. And they just treated us so well. And it was just fun being around those guys because you know what? They're just like you and me. They get dressed the same way. They just have a talent that is above and beyond other people. And they got the breaks and they made it, and they had the staying power and they lit it up. But they were down to home earth, nice guys. And I had a blast being around them.
Well, they is you as well, you know.
That's
So.
right. You are a big leaguer, Jim. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that's funny, and we're all going to get a kick out of this is, Roberto Hernandez and that crew was kind enough to dress you up, but, you know, with some nice men's clothes, right? But you also get the rookie hazing, right? And we won't call it hazing for the sake of not offending anybody, but, you know, a little rookie teasing, right?
It was okay to haze back then.
Yeah. I got the rookie treatment. It's funny because I'm older than most of those guys. And so they would do something to me, but they would apologize beforehand. They're like, "You know what? We're sorry, but you got to do this." And then I'm doing an interview with ESPN when Rob Dibble was interviewing. He's like, "Jimmy, have you been hazed yet?" And I'm like, "Nope, haven't." He goes, "Okay, I'll take care of that." And I let it go. I forget about it. That night, I throw 2 innings in Anaheim. The Disney people are there. My old minor league manager's there, who when I'm throwing is telling the producer, who's one of my roommates from back in minor league days, he's like, "Where the hell was that when he played for me?" And so I throw 2 innings of shutout ball. I light it up. I go into the clubhouse, and my clothes are gone. In its place is a blonde wig, a dress, a bra, a blouse, high heels, and this thong. And this thong, I have G-string. Okay, it's a G-string. On the front, it says "Ring my bell," and there's a little bell on it. Those are the clothes I wore from Anaheim, California to New York City.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Long one.
Oh, you guys don't know the best of it though. You guys got to read the book. Again, I'm only 5 chapters in, but there's a lot in there. The flight was delayed. Oh no, it had to circle around New York City for like 2 hours.
President is coming into town, President Clinton, and we fly around the city of New York for several hours waiting to land because it's the president. And I will tell you this right now, ladies, if you wear a G string, God bless you, because I have no idea how you do it. I had to have a shovel to dig that thing out when I got to my room.
That's great.
I get off the bus in Manhattan. I get off the bus at 8:00 in the morning, and New Yorkers are looking at me going, "Look at these fools that just came in." I'm like, "You're from New York, dude. What are you talking about?" And I get off the bus, and fortunately for me, they had mercy on me and they gave me a skirt. All the other rookies had mini skirts on, and I thought, I'm blessed. I was a school teacher, and so I was the marm, and they were my students. But they didn't give me my clothes back till right before I had to be at the park. And so I'm sitting in my room with a hotel robe on all day, and I'm like, where are my clothes? Where are my clothes? And then the athletic trainer brings me my bag, and he goes, I'm sorry, they wouldn't let me bring him till it was time to go. And I'm like, yeah, great day.
So
Jim, when you first got signed and you got sent to extended spring or down to the camp, was there anyone that kind of took you under their wing and kind of helped throughout that, or was it kind of just go out and throw?
There was an athletic trainer there, Ron Porterfield, and I think he's in Arizona now.
Mm-hmm.
And he would work me out, weights, running, everything else, and then I would throw, and then we would go over to the field and he hit me ground balls, or I'd cover first. And I was trying to get my legs back under me to be a professional ball player. I'm throwing 100, but I am so far out of baseball shape, and I've coached it and I've done everything like that. But playing is a different story, and playing at that level, at that speed, is completely a different thing. And I love the fans who go, baseball is so slow. When you're on the field, it is a different story. And so he got me back into shape, and I would come in and I'm like, dude, I am old. And he's like, Jimmy, you throw 100. Dude, I would switch places with you in half a second if I did that. If I could throw 100, I'm playing.
Yeah,
I don't care how old I am.
Guys weren't throwing 100.
No.
Yeah. And so he got me back into shape, and he was my mentor for a brief time to get me back into shape and get me back into baseball mind of playing and not coaching. And so he got me back in the swing of it. And yeah, he's the one who talked me into staying.
And there had to be some awkwardness, right? Also with going to the minor league clubs, right? Because you got the young kids who are trying to make their way, and here comes this guy out of nowhere, right? So there's got to be a little bit of, I don't know if you call it animosity, but obviously maybe a little some subtle tension, or just some barriers that you got to get over, right? I imagine you have to deal with that as well.
Yeah, I walk into the clubhouse. We're Zebulon, North Carolina. I meet the Orlando Rays there, and I walk into this clubhouse, and this kid looks up and he goes, "Hey, we got a new coach." I'm like, "You suck," or whatever. And I get dressed and I go out the first night, and I come in with the guy on first. Now, you guys are going to get a hoot out of this. I'm a baseball coach, right? Before I ever throw a pitch in Double-A, I balk.
No.
And I'm sitting there and I just put my head down and laugh and go, oh my God, my kids would be all over me.
So wait, you didn't come to a stop? What'd you do?
I came to a quick stop, and then I kind of shook for a second, and book, and I'm like, oh my God, that's embarrassing.
Oh man.
That's
and,
perfect,
and the guy goes to second, and I end up getting through the inning. I strike out a guy, I get a double play ball. We end up doubling the guy at second because he got cut in between. My inning's over, 91, 92. And they're like, hey, he's actually pretty good for an old guy. The second night, 2 innings, strike out 5 guys, 98, 99. And they're like, whoa, he's good. And that's when they asked me questions. And that's when I understood the difference between 19 and 35. And they're like, so you're married? And I'm going, yeah. And you have kids? I said, I got 3. And this kid's looking at me, he's all perplexed. And you guys have seen these kids on your ball team. You're like, how can they even get dressed? I have no idea. And he's like, so after each kid, you start throwing harder? And I'm like, yes. And I'm going to have a couple more. And he's like, wow, that's cool. And I'm like, you're so gone. I don't know how you can swing a bat. And the next day I'm in AAA. And I played there. And if there's animosity, I don't feel it too bad. There's one guy in particular. There's always one guy on the team, and you're like, you're just mad. You're mad all the time.
Yeah,
They could
we're
give you
mad
the
at who.
world.
That's right.
Yeah, they could give them the world. They'd still be mad about something. But everybody else just welcomed me in because they knew I could do what I was there to do. And if there was any question, the second I got on the field and threw like I did, and they're like, oh yeah, he's got it. And it was just fun being back in that atmosphere. When you're in a locker room, there is a camaraderie you build. And even firemen, my best friend is a fireman now and an EMT. And there is something about being around guys. It's different from having your wife around or a girlfriend or anything else. When you're around guys, there's like no mercy. And so if you screw up, you're paying, dude, believe me. And so that being back in that atmosphere and being able to razz people, and it doesn't matter what color you are, and it doesn't matter what language you speak, you're just one of the guys and you're hanging out. And you can say what you want to each other and nobody cares because we're just teammates and we're having fun. I miss that. That's what we need in this country. We need to be able to say stuff to people without people getting their underwear all knotted up because we're all just trying to live.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. Hey, Jim,
Jim, I've tried to get the kangaroo court into the firehouse, but too many of the guys are very sensitive. They're not like baseball players.
You know what? We've got a group of people right now who are young and everything has been politically correct their whole lives and you can't say boo and all this stuff. And I am tired of all that because that is a tired situation. Take the kangaroo court, put it in session and let it go. You know what? When they get used to it, they'll have fun with it.
That's great.
I love it. I love it. Jim, selfishly, I need to hear about your experience of walking into Yankee Stadium and playing there because that's my biggest failure in life is I didn't get to play there. So please, indulge me.
They're still in the old stadium when I'm playing. And the first thing I do, my grandparents are the biggest mentors in my life. They were my original dream makers. But during my senior year of high school, my first year of junior college, my grandfather fought ALS, and it was Lou Gehrig's disease, a disease that he got from a chemical during World War II when he was in the Philippines and didn't know it for 30 years, and then it hit you, and the brain still works fine, but the body doesn't listen to the brain anymore. And so you watch the person you love wither away in front of you. So the first thing I did was I went out to the monuments in center field and had one of my friends take a picture of me at Lou Gehrig's grave. And then I sent it to my grandmother with a letter. And there's something about men when they have kids, and, ball players do it, firemen do it, motivational speakers do it. When you see somebody else crying after you have a kid and you have kids, you become emotional and that emotion hits you. Kind of like if you guys go out and save somebody and you see this lady crying because you saved her kid from a fire. If she's crying, you're going to cry and you're going to shed tears because that's just how it is. Now, back at the firehouse, you may razz each other because, yeah, you were crying, dude. I saw you. And you no, I wouldn't. And that's where the kangaroo court needs to come in. And you catch liars, man, you pay. But I take that picture, I send it to my grandmother, and we're there for a 4-game stand. And during batting practice, I've learned quickly, don't go to right field because the bleacher creatures are going to get all over you. And so I'm in left field. On the 4th day, Roberto calls me over to right field and he goes, your turn, dude. And so they start in immediately, Morris. And I'm like, oh God. He goes, you better turn around because they're going to keep it up. It's going to get ugly. I turn around and they're like, Morris, you suck. It's a great story, but you suck anyway. And that's all they had to say to me. And he's like, that's it? After everything we take, all you get is that? And he goes, I don't like you anymore. And so I throw in Yankee Stadium. I pitch there. I'm in the bullpen. I'm a rookie. I've got the candy bag because I'm in the bullpen. I got to take care of everybody and everything they want. I've got Copenhagen, which we didn't have because you can't do that because it's not politically correct. So that's in the bag. I have gum in the bag. I have candy in the bag. And after this one game, I'm grabbing the bag. Frank Sinatra singing, and I hear Morris, this deep, gruff voice. And I turn around. It's like this 9-foot giant cop who has this New York City uniform on that have the buttons across the top and then down across the side. And he goes, "Hey," and I go, "Man, this is a candy bag. If I had a ball, I would give it to you, but there aren't any balls in this bag." He goes, "No, I got the bag. I just want your autograph." And he unbuttons a couple of buttons. He pulls a ball out and he tosses it down to me. And I sign it and I throw it back up to him and he goes, "You're doing this for us." And I thought that was one of the coolest moments because he just won a signed baseball. And I'm doing it for people who have been counted out and people who didn't get a second chance and people who have overcome obstacles. And I'm that next door neighbor who had something very lucky happen to him. And it happened because of a group of kids. But here I am at 35, living this guy's dream. And he's helping save people every single day and keeping us in line. And that's just a cool moment that I love. And when you throw in Yankee Stadium and you watch the electricity that goes through that ballpark, it is unlike anything you've ever encountered in your entire life. And the Northeast is baseball.
Oh, that's awesome. Man, I'm just thinking about
Hey.
my failure again.
No.
You want
I'm just kidding.
you want to feel like a failure again? You want to know how athletic Jim Morris is?
Let's hear it.
He-
Well, I know
he
he's
was-
big football.
He was an All-American college football player.
Wow.
Right? Isn't that right?
I led the country in punting and I kicked off in touchbacks also. And I didn't know at the time, every team came through and they're watching me. And they're like, "That's a great punt." When Minnesota came to town, I averaged 5.3 hang time on my punts. And they were just going ballistic because I guess that's unheard of, 5.3. And the draft comes in like 92 and I don't get drafted. And I'm like, "What happened?" And my best friends are like, "Dude, everybody loved you that came here." And they were guys that were throwing me the ball like it was snaps and setting it up for me for kickoffs. After the movie comes out, I'm in Corpus Christi, Texas, speaking to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Reed Ryan is there, Nolan's son. They're bringing minor league baseball to Corpus Christi. And he and I and a couple others are the only gringos in the crowd. And so after the speech, this man comes up to me, who was the other one, and he shakes my hand. He goes, "I came here specifically to talk to you." I said, "Okay." He goes, "Do you remember me?" I said, "No, sir. I've met a lot of people in the last few years." He goes, "I was your football agent when you were at Angelo a decade ago." I go, "Oh my God, you've lost so much weight. You look incredible." I said, "Do you still work with your daughter?" He said, "Yes, I do. And when we heard you were coming to town, I got your old game films out and I came here to ask you a question." I said, "Ask me anything you want, man." He goes, "In 92, when the Steelers were going to draft you in the second round, why did you not call back?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "The Steelers were going to draft you in the second round to punt and kick off. And when you didn't call back, they passed on you and they told everybody else that you didn't want to play football."
Jim, this is another movie, you know, right? This is
And so everybody wants to know, and I allude to it in the book, but I don't say, but I never got the phone call.
It didn't get passed on to you, is what you can tell.
And-
It did not get passed on to me.
Right.
And it's a good thing it didn't, right? At the end of the day.
You know what? For 30 seconds after that man talked to me, I was the maddest human being that's ever lived on this planet. And then I call my wife now, Shauna, and I'm like, this happened. And I'm cursing, I'm screaming. The man of faith is letting go with the F words. And then it hits me, and I'm like, I wouldn't be where I am right now if that dream would have come true. If I would have been a football player, baseball doesn't happen, the movie doesn't happen, I'm not married to the greatest woman on the planet, raising 5 kids, I this is the story that God wanted, and this is the story that God got. I didn't get that message for a reason, and I let it go.
You just would have had probably the easiest thing in all professional sports to do, though.
I
mean,
could have punted until I was 80, man.
Exactly.
I mean, those guys, what a scam, you know? If you catch the ball, that's it. You're just gonna make money for 20 years.
You'd
Just gotta catch
probably still be playing too. They
I
play
know,
forever.
right? But that's all right.
So Jim, obviously you turn this into a big thing where you do motivational speaking after that naturally. I mean, so what's like your message and how has it evolved over the years, if it has, or stay the same?
You know, the question that everybody asked for years was, what have you done since? But I talk about the story. I talk about the dream makers in my life and the people who have meant the most, and how you need to surround yourself with the best people possible to be the best you can be. I tell stories. I talk about the dream killers and the people who want to see you fail because they've either tried something and they failed at it, or they're too afraid to try. So if they can drag you down where they are, they feel better about where it is they are. And I add a lot of humor. I make people laugh. I make people think. I'm doing a speech in Canada, we're hockey country, right after I start speaking. And these are for unemployed people, and there's like 4,000 of them. They have this line of speakers who talk to them all day and motivate them. The lady in front of me, and I'm standing behind the stage, behind a curtain, and I'm listening to her engage this crowd. And they've been there too long. They were supposed to go home 3 hours ago, but some of the speakers went on too long. They're tired, they're unemployed, they have no hope. We're in hockey country, and she is making these people fall out of their chairs laughing. And I go out and I tell my baseball story, and it is flat. It's respectful, and they're like, hey, yay. And they go home. And immediately I went, humor, that's the way. And I've done enough stupid things in my life that if I tell the things that I've done, other people will feel better about the things that they've done, and they relate to it. And so I'm a relatable guy. I'm not Tony Robbins. I'm not going to get up there and give you a step-by-step deal on how you need to be a leader. I tell you about chasing your dreams and chasing your goals and not giving up, and how you don't want to wake up one day and go, what if I'd have tried one more time? And how to respect your family and respect your kids. They are a gift. It's not something we have to do. We get to be a dad. And we get to be that father, and we need to show those kids our love, because if we don't, they're going to go out and find it somewhere on the street, and that's not what we want.
Right. No, that's great. How old is your son Hunter now? He's got to be in his 20s, right?
Hunter turns 30 this year.
30. Wow.
Which means I'm old. And, you know, at 10 years of age, President Bush invited my son to the White House. And he had seen the movie with all the Disney people. I couldn't be there because I was at a speech. And it was cool to get a letter from the president. Thank you for the integrity you had and keeping your word and going to that thing instead of coming to the White House, because most people would come here. And so he invites Hunter and I later, and we go to this T-ball deal on the front lawn, Cal Ripken's deal. And he's talking to my son, and he looks down at my son, who's 10 years old. And this is a guy who is the president of the United States, threw out the first pitch after 9/11 in the World Series, and loves baseball, owned a Major League Baseball team. He looks down at my son in this Texas drawl, and he goes, Hunter, are you going to be a ball player like your daddy? And my son looks up at the president of the United States and said, no, sir, baseball sucks. And as a baseball player, you're mortified, but as a dad, you're like, he said, sir, that's cool.
Right.
And he looks up at President Bush. He goes, I'm going to be a lawyer. And he's a lawyer.
Awesome.
And
That's
awesome.
great.
he
Good for
got to
him.
chase his dreams because I didn't do to my kids what my dad did to me.
Right.
Sports saved me. They didn't need that. They never were attracted to it like that, but they've chased their own dreams, whatever it is. He's a lawyer. And all my other kids are working on master's degrees or doctorates, and are going to nursing school. I got one getting a Bible degree, and she just finished. And I got my son in Austin, who is 32, is Shauna's oldest, and he's chasing his dreams. And it's just a blast to watch them grow into who they're going to be.
No, that's great stuff.
It sure
Unbelievable.
is. It really is unbelievable. I mean, obviously, you know, there's so many messages there. I mean, Jim's, Jim Morris, your challenges growing up, with your father, obviously, there's some innuendo there. There's never some real deep detail in the movie. You talk about it a little bit early in your book, as I'm reading and learning, and that's one side of it, right? Where that's a dream killer per se, right? And then you have the parents who don't let their kids just chase their own dreams, and because they're trying to live vicariously through their own kids, right? And force something on them. So there's different ends of the spectrum here. One of the things I think I find fascinating listening to you right now and talk is you have this infectious quality about you, whether it's natural, whether it's developed over time because of your experiences, and obviously because of your ability to speak to people now and you want to get a message out there. But you still continue to be very inspiring because people can easily look at your past and your book or the movie and that path and that's enough for anybody, right? But to this day now, you're still overcoming challenges and you're still trying to get messages out. Reading early parts of the book, you talk about when you first discovered having Parkinson's. I mean, and you're dealing with that battle. You uncover that and you're dealing with that, but you're still out here pushing a great message. So I think that's a phenomenal thing that you're doing, and if you can just elaborate on that, maybe just a little bit. We don't have to get too deep in it. I think people should get the book to see, to dive into it some more, but just share a little bit of that with us, if you don't mind.
In 2001, I am with the Dodgers in LA working out at Chavez Ravine, and I'm throwing 98 to 100. I'm painting the black, anything I want, slider perfect, forkball perfect. And in less than 5 days, I drive from LA, I go through Texas, hug my kids, tell them I love them, go to Vero Beach where the Dodgers still were at the time. And in those 5 days, I couldn't judge the ball anymore. If somebody hit a ball back at me, I would bend over and the center fielder would be picking it up, or I'd bend over and the catcher's picking it up in front of home plate. My balance is off. I'm playing pepper. I can't even play pepper. I can't judge the ball. I'm missing everything that's hitting me. I get the hit. I can't even hit the ball. We have a bunting drill. Everybody on the planet can bunt. You sit here, you put your eyes in front of it, and you bump the ball. Couldn't do it. And I'm like, what happened? During this period of time, my kids are also wondering where I am because now I've got this new dream and I'm chasing this thing I've wanted since I was a kid. And my son calls me and he said, Dad, when are you coming home? And so I tell people, God talks to us, and are we going to listen? And it's not always in this great reverberating voice, but it's in a whisper, or it's in a child, or it's in something that you could do yesterday, but you can't do today. And so I walked into Jim Tracy's office, I quit, I go home. And over the next 20 years, I meet my wife now, Shauna. We're married for 18 in November this year. And in 20 years, I've had over 50 surgeries. And she's got 58 pictures of me going into surgery over these 20 years. Now, I've never missed a speech and nothing like that. But during those 20 years, you're constantly on opiates. I'm not overdoing it. I'm not taking too many. I'm doing what the doctor said. But that's not enough. And I have these pains that will not go away, all nerve pain. And so I have a headache. And when people go, oh, you've got a headache, why don't you lie down for a little bit and get up? These are 6-month headaches. And it would start with my neck locking up, sinus infection, headache for 6 months. And you can't sleep because your head hurts so bad. So you get up while everybody else is asleep. You take a pill. You mix vodka in with that because you're going to add your own concoction, because we went to medical school for like 3 seconds on the internet. And I'm trying to fix myself. And in doing this, I lose myself. And the bottom line is I end up in rehab. And when you get to chapter 9, you're going to roll, because that is a little bit embarrassing. It was a very tough chapter to write. It was probably the second hardest chapter to write. Chapter 10, the chapter about faith, that's the hardest, because I'm a secular world speaker. And when you put your faith out there and you talk about it strongly, it runs some people off. But that's who I am. I don't push anybody else into anything. I don't tell you you need to do it. I tell you what's worked for me. So here's the deal. 58 surgeries, opiate, vodka addiction, rehab, well, come home. My girls from church pray for me. My girls are 50 to 90. They want to be called girls. They don't want to be called women because that means they're old. And so those are my girls. I don't have Parkinson's. And my neurologist and my neurosurgeon are like, that doesn't happen ever. Nobody has ever not had Parkinson's. Once you get it, and you go downhill. And I was at a point 3 years ago where my mom bought me a cane so I could drag my leg around and walk around the house, and that's all I could do. And now, today, I'm in the best shape. I'm in better shape now than I was when I went back and played
Time for
ball.
another comeback.
I don't know about all that.
Punt. You got to punt now.
I don't want nobody hitting the ball back at me 100 miles an hour, but now I can run. And I haven't been even able to even walk consistently 3 years ago, and now I'm running. And so faith has been something that's been very big and prevalent in my life. I wasn't ever supposed to pitch again. I came back throwing harder with more control than I ever had in my life. I was supposed to get sick with Parkinson's. My doctor would just go, it's just Parkinson's. It's just Parkinson's. And now I don't have that. They do a brain scan and they're like, oh, your brain is totally fine. You have dopamine and you didn't have it before. You don't have it. And it makes me do all the tests. I pass all the tests. I have balance. I can taste. I can smell. It's gone. Can I explain it? Absolutely not. Do I attribute it to faith? Absolutely. It's not anything I did. It's just because it happened. And I attribute it to faith because that is what has been working for me.
That's awesome.
I'm floored.
Amazing.
It really is. Well, Jim, tell everybody, we want people to learn more about you and we want them to read this book. Tell people, our audience, where can they get a copy of this?
See, I've got a copy. Dreammakersbook.com. You go there, you get an autographed copy and 30% off. And it's a book that's going to take you, we wrote it in the way that I talk when I'm on stage. And so it's presented like that. And so when you read it, you're like, I feel like he's talking to me. And it was done that way on purpose because that's what the people wanted who have talked to me for 20 years going, you need to have a book and it needs life and it needs humor. And Dennis Quaid wrote the foreword and it's amazing. And it's just been a long time coming. And I'll tell you what, chapter 10 was the holdup for 20 years. And when we got that, chapter 10's always been there. Chapter 10 was just icing on the cake. Chapter 9 was the chapter we were looking for to be a closer for all these years. And we got it and we're done.
That's awesome. And I recommend all of our audience get it. You guys need to catch up to this. It's amazing when you hear some of the other connections of how the people feel Jim's story affected them and gave them a second chance. So there was some, Dennis Quaid talks about how this gave him a second chance. There's some fascinating tidbits in there. So go out and get that book. I think you won't regret it. So.
Yeah, Jim. So I guess you remain pretty close with Dennis Quaid over the years, or how that?
We're good friends. And it took me a long time, and my publisher was like, ask Dennis to write a forward. And I'm like, I'm not bothering that man. He's making movies and he's making insurance commercials and playing his band. And I finally did it. And he was like, absolutely, man, send it to me. And then I get this forward back and I'm floored. And I had to tell you, I read it. I have tears.
Yeah.
Because he says I've helped change him too. And I think he is one of those people when they go, did you ever think about getting caught up in Hollywood? And no, Dennis was my friend, and it wasn't about Hollywood or anything else. We made a movie, yeah, but we hung out together and we traveled together and we played golf together and we went to eat together, and he played me in a movie, but we became friends, and that friendship has lasted. I went to his mom's funeral last fall, and it's just something there that is stronger. You guys know it's a locker room friendship. We know each other, and I can finish something that he starts and he can finish something that I start because we know where we're going with it.
How long did it take to film the movie? And what's amazing is, this all happens in 99. The movie comes out in 2002. Like, that's a quick turnaround for that.
Yeah, they said that doesn't happen. And so we filmed the movie in 4.5 months. They did a couple of redos that showed different parts of Texas while they were doing it, but 4.5 months. And it took 8 months to edit. And after they edit, this is funny. After they edit it and they call Sean and I to Burbank and they're like, we want you to watch it. It's done. And so we go in this little room, and we're these people from Disney, and we sit down for 3.5 hours. We watch this film where I'd been on the movie set. We filmed it from the end to the beginning so they could destroy the field as we went and then reverse it. And so 3.5 hours, sound gaps, no music. And I'm like, so what do you think? I think, okay, whatever. And 2 weeks later, literally, I am in Nashville, and I've got to introduce the film and then have this group of people watch it and then talk to them after. It's the National Religious Broadcasters Convention. Whole lot of people in this big auditorium. They watch the movie, and I had to stop crying before I could get up and talk. I was blown away, and I thought, they did it.
Yeah.
This is the story. It's about kids, and it's about older people who got a second chance and overcoming things that nobody thought they could do. And it had grace in it, and it had forgiveness, and it had love, and they did a great job. Disney did a great job.
Yeah, they really did. And now there has to be one part of the movie that didn't happen. And I'm going to ask you, the one with the mile-per-hour thing, did you really throw a ball past the sign?
Here's the deal. I was doing an interview the other day, and somebody asked me, is there a scene in the movie, whether it happened or not, that means more to you now than it did then? And I will say that the mile-per-hour marker on the side of the road was made up, and it was. But it let everybody know I had no idea how hard I threw till I got there.
Oh, it's awesome.
What it means to me now is the sign was saying one thing on one side, but when you get to the other side, it says something else. And now what this country and this world is going through, we were one way before, and now we've had this, and it's going to be something else on the other side. And people are panicked and worried. I'm not. I think it's going to be bigger and better, and we're going to know how to control things even more, and we're going to flourish because that's who we are. This country specifically, we know how to flourish and expand, and that's what we're good at.
Well said. I thought you were going to ask about the hair on the baseball field with the
That's absolutely
with
true.
the deer.
Absolutely true.
I'm realizing that the whole movie was basically exactly true. And
Well, that's
pretty,
why you chose Disney, right? You mentioned that in your book. Why you chose Disney is because they were going to depict it to the best of it's, I guess, factual state, right? I mean, so there was some crazy other suggestions out there. I'll let you read it. You got to go read it to find out what some of the other suggestions were. But there was some funny things thrown out there.
That was embarrassing.
Well, I mean, listen, unless you guys got anything for Jimmy, we stole a lot of his time already, and we're really gracious that you shared, took some time out of your day to share your story with us and our audience. And I think, yes, again, can't be said in any other way but fascinating. And, we really appreciate you, spending some time with us, Jim.
Absolutely, man. It's been fun hanging out with ball players, being in the locker room for a little bit.
Yep.
And thank you guys for what y'all do. Thank you for putting your lives on the line every single day. And thank you for taking care of your kids, man.
Yeah, we
Jim,
try.
thanks for coming on. It's really your story is the best. And like Jimmy Gale said earlier, like that movie, anytime it's on, we can't turn it off.
Never.
You can't change the channel.
The worst part is now they got
that's
this.
Another penny for me.
They got this stupid. How about ABC has this damn movie, this show called The Rookie? I get all excited all the time. It's like a new cop show.
All right.
Yeah.
Drives me up a wall.
Copyright infringement.
Jim, here's one more question though before you go. I mean, to me, if you're in this movie and it's on TV all the time, do you have to stop and watch it every single time, or you just pass it over like, yeah, whatever?
You want the real answer?
Yeah. I would never. I would watch it every time.
There are moments that I will stop and watch part of it, but it is still, even after all these years, it's too strong in my mind to sit down and watch the whole thing. It's too many emotions go through me, and so it's very hard. I just appreciate the fact that they put something out there like that, because it's going to let generations of kids know there is hope, and we can make this, and we can do it if we do it the right way. And for older people, never give up, man.
No, that's even more powerful that that's how you feel about it, So, I mean,
Yeah, he
I
doesn't
came
have
in.
as big an ego as you, Jim.
No, I guess not. I came into this completely, like I said, I was totally pumped up. Great job, Brian Dorsey, reaching out to this great man. But I'm even more floored now. I can't wait to dive into the book and spread the word
Yeah, we're gonna
of your
spread the
story.
word. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that means you'll
Absolutely.
have
Jim,
about
I know
2
you
more
have
sales.
Jimmy has a website, Jimmy Morris. I don't know if you want to give us that website so the listeners know where to go.
Yeah, let's do it one more time.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Jim the Rookie, JimTheRookieMorris.com. Sorry, went blank for a second. JimTheRookieMorris.com. And they can go there to book me or talk to my assistant, Lori Patterson, about anything. And then we can, like you guys did, interviews or whatever. But for booking, JimTheRookieMorris.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. You guys look me up, and I'd love to stay in contact because you guys mean a
Yes.
lot to me because of what we've been through. We've been through baseball, and now you guys are going out and saving people, and that's, to me,
Yeah.
that is strong, and that's
We got to figure out
a
a way to
love
get
and
you back
thing.
out here to New York so you can talk to our college
Well,
program.
we have,
That'd be awesome.
yeah, Jimmy and I help run a camp called Camp Christ. We run the baseball aspect of it. It's probably not going to happen this year, but would love to have you out. It's fully sponsored, so we have some really great guys behind it. Joe Girardi's visited it in the past, and yeah, I think it would be the perfect setting. Have you out and take care of everything.
That's awesome. I would appreciate that. It
Yeah,
would mean a
yeah.
lot to me.
We're not doing it this year, obviously. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
but that's
Oh,
a great
who
idea.
knows what's going on? Everybody goes, "Hey, I'm ready to get back to normal. I'm ready to get back to normal." Did you really like normal to begin with? And
Right. No,
Well, Jim, thanks again. Brian, that's awesome that you extended it out to Jim. I think that's a great idea for Camp Christ to have him down. Our audience, make sure you check out that book. We want to thank you all for listening again, tuning in. Make sure you go to iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, hit the subscribe button. Don't be afraid to leave us a comment. Love to hear from you. We're also on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button there. Give us a like. And until next time, the Wild Pitch Podcast.